Dr. Abdul Wahid is the leader of a controversial Islamist movement which glorified the Hamas attacks and chanted for jihad on the streets of London. Astonishingly, he's also an long-serving NHS GP. And last night, he came on my show, accepted an invitation to be interviewed after he was in the newspapers for his thoughts about what happened on October the 7th. And while that interview caused last night a bit of a stir. Do you think Hamas are a terror group?
I believe it's a resistance organisation.
Okay. Do you think what they did on October the 7th was a terror attack?
I believe that if civilians got killed on that day, it is appalling. It is appalling.
You're a doctor, man.
It is appalling.
You're a doctor in the NHS. What do you mean if? 1,200 people got massacred. Well, very clearly, Dr. Wahid cast doubt on whether the atrocities on October 7th even took place. Also clearly, he questioned whether any civilians had been massacred. He believes the Hamas attacks were an act of resistance and the people who did it are not terrorists, but they're fighting a resistance. I don't think they were. 1,200 innocent people were killed that day. Women were raped, babies and the elderly were kidnapped. Some people were beheaded. It was a medieval orgy of indiscriminate violence. And we know that in no small part because Hamas filmed their attacks and gleefully celebrated them in videos they posted to the world. And Hamas has since publicly warned that it will not hesitate to repeat the attacks again.
إسرائيل دولة لا مقام لها على أرضنا. إحنا الدولة لابد أن نزيلها لأنه بالفعل هي تعتبر كارثة أمنية وعسكرية وسياسية للأمة العربية والإسلامية يجب أن تنتهي. لذلك إحنا لا نخجل من نقول ذلك بكل قوة. إنه إسرائيل لازم نأدبها وحنأدبها مرة ثانية وثالثة.
Whatever your view of this war, and I've tried to platform a lot of people on both sides of it repeatedly so we can get a sense of what both sides are thinking. Denying that the massacre of October the 7th even happened cannot be the basis for any sensible discussion. I have deep sympathy with the decades-long plight of the Palestinian people, which I've expressed many times. I've repeatedly called out Israel's occupation of both Gaza and the West Bank. I have deep unease about the scale of Israel's response to the Hamas attack, unease that's now shared by the President of the United States. But to deny that it was a terror attack at all is quite frankly poisonous delusion. And I think it's entirely valid to question whether this man's views are compatible with being an NHS doctor in a publicly funded health service. I'm not calling for him to be fired or cancelled, as some have said today. I gave him a platform on this show called Uncensored to elaborate on his opinions. But I found a lot of his answers deeply concerning. And I do believe many members of the public, not least his own patients, might also share my unease about the opinions he so willingly offered, just as they were about cries of jihad on the streets of London. There's been a backlash from some Muslim followers of myself on Twitter, mostly because I suggested Dr. Wahid wants women to be oppressed. Would you like Sharia law in this country? Last time I'm going to ask you.
If Sharia law,
yes or no.
If Sharia law means upholding family values, means looking after the poor,
means no gays, no feminists, i.e. women who get above themselves,
that's your caricature. No, that's your
I know what Sharia law wants for women.
Why do so many women become Muslim these days? Why do
because they
so
want to
many
be
women
oppressed. Is that what you're going to tell me?
No.
Well, I said that in the specific context of Dr. Wahid's desire for Sharia law in this country and his defence of a tweet from one of the members of his own organisation calling feminists and gay people filth. It's important to understand that context. I don't suggest for a moment that women who want to convert to Islam should do so for any other than perfectly good reasons. I have no problem with Islam as a religion or with Muslims. I have a problem, though, with people who endorse and support terrorism or who are blatantly homophobic or who are blatantly misogynist. Now, many people have since accused me of being, as I say, anti-Muslim, but I'm not. No one who watches this show could possibly reach that conclusion. Let me be crystal clear again. I'm anti-terrorists and I'm anti those who support terrorists. Well, joining me now from Tel Aviv is Douglas Murray, the Associate Editor of The Spectator, the co-founder of the Muslim Debate Initiative, Abdullah Al-Andalusi, and Dr. Izzeldin Abuelaish, the Canadian-Palestinian medical doctor, who's joined me again in the studio. And great to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Let me start with you, if I may, Dr. Abuelaish. When you saw that interview, what was your response to the fact that it's an NHS doctor working and living in this country who was saying those things?
It's important. I am coming, I heard it. I heard many of your interviews. Jihad, the word jihad. My presence here is jihad. When I'm coming to meet with you to advocate for my Palestinian people and for saving lives of the people is jihad. And this is the highest level of jihad. The resistance against someone who is invading you, this is the lowest level of jihad. But jihad, when I'm traveling, when I am going to any place, even someone who is dying because of far away from his home is a kind of jihad. When we are fasting, when we are working, work is a jihad. And that's the most important. We need to understand it, not to take it out of the context in the limited understanding of it. When I am invaded with a disease, COVID, what do? I have to resist the COVID. And that's when we face cancer disease, any cancer.
With respect, you would not categorize October the 7th as a resistance.
It's, I condemned the killing of any innocent human being. And for me, I was born, my daughters were killed before October 7th.
Yes, I know.
I was born as a Palestinian refugee before October 7. My parents were refugees before 48. Yes. They were born in Palestine. So the history didn't start. The world is not created October 7th. That's what we need. And we are today.
But I don't think
it's important. But let me continue.
I don't think
let me continue, please.
All right.
Today is the 12th of December. Today is the 12th of December where we have more than 23 Palestinians are killed. More than 45,000 are severely wounded. Even the damage in the Gaza Strip, as Borrell, the representative of Foreign Affairs in the European Union, it's far beyond the damage in Germany for 6 years. In 2 months, more than that. So even, how many...
That's not true, actually.
Why?
No, there was far...
He said that.
Who said that?
Borrell, the representative of the European Union, the Foreign Affairs.
Yeah, but far more people died in World War II than have died in this war.
The
structural damage,
the destruction.
Well, there certainly would have been more damage in Germany in World War II.
He mentioned that himself.
Well, that won't be factually accurate. But here's my question, though, for you. It all comes back to me. I'm very happy to platform anybody on this show, right to the point where they try and convince me that what happened on October the 7th was not an act of terror. And when people refuse to concede that point, I find it very hard then to have a civilized discussion. It's why I got so annoyed last night.
Well, can we... So, if I may interject...
the killing of my daughters as terrorist?
Well, I think it was appalling. And I think
Do you consider it as terrorist?
I do not consider Israel to be a terrorist organization.
The killing of my daughters?
I think here's a question we have to ask ourselves, which is, since you have defended Israel's operation in Gaza as self-defense.
Don't misquote me. Don't misquote me. I've defended...
So you don't say it's part of their self-defense?
No, let me clarify.
Okay.
I've defended Israel's right to defend itself, right?
Right.
In fact, they have a duty to its civilians after Hamas's repeated threats since October the 7th to repeat it, to defend its civilians.
So is the war in Gaza not self-defense, or is it according
let me just clarify my position so you know, right?
Yeah.
However, I have repeatedly questioned the proportionality of Israel's response, as indeed their greatest allies,
but not the response itself.
Now doing.
But not the response itself, though.
I think they're perfectly entitled to go and take out Hamas.
So may I continue my question then?
Yes.
I'll ask you. So since you have justified their response, maybe not how they've carried it out exactly, but you justify their response as self-defense.
Their right to defend themselves by taking out the terrorists who committed that atrocity, yes.
Okay. And presumably you refuse to call Israel, and you have refused when you've been asked to call Israel a terrorist organization, government, or the IDF a terrorist organization.
Well, the difference is here we are. Well, hang on.
No. Let me finish my question, please. I have a question for you.
I must clarify.
Let me finish my question.
You're making some statements that are a bit misleading.
Sure.
This country considers Hamas to be a prescribed terror group. They do not consider Israel to be a terrorist organisation, and nor do I. So that's the position.
But
I'm not asking you.
The United States consider PLO.
I'm not asking the British government. I'm asking you, Piers.
I don't think
the British government isn't here.
I do not think they're a terrorist organisation.
Now let me finish my question, if I can ask the question as well, right, for us to discuss. So considering that you have justified the operation that Israel initiated as self-defense, and that you refuse to call Israel a terrorist organization or a terrorist government, despite the fact that almost as many Palestinians, Gazans, have died under Israel's precision bombing than as Londoners have died during the whole year of the Blitz under German bombing, which wasn't precision bombing. And yet you still say that, well, Israel isn't a terrorist organization. I think the question we should be asking is, should you be suspended? Is it responsible to have a person with your views speaking to the public when you clearly refuse to condemn that which needs to be condemned, which was worse than the London Blitz? Those that condemn
perfectly reasonable
with precision weapons, and the Germans didn't even have precision weapons.
Perfectly reasonable question.
Yes.
And you've asked me it on my show.
Yes.
The fact you're here and able to ask that, I think, is evidence that I'm prepared to listen to people who will look me in the eye and ask me difficult questions.
Well, you didn't know I was going to say that, but anyway, yes.
That's fine, but that's fine. You're perfectly entitled to it.
Yeah.
We believe in uncensored free speech here.
Yeah.
But let me ask you the question then, which I asked.
You're not answering my question, but you haven't answered it.
Well, I have. I said I don't think they're a terrorist organisation.
Despite the fact that they've killed almost as many
you've asked me a question.
as Germans
You've
did
asked me a question.
when they bombed London under the Blitz for 1 year with non-precision bombs.
I have given you an unequivocal answer. Now let me ask you if you can give me one.
Yes.
Do you believe Hamas are a terror organisation?
Okay, and I'd like to ask you, what does that mean?
Just answer my question.
Well, I need clarification.
Well, this country has prescribed them as a terror group. Do you think they are?
Are you the British government?
No, I'm asking you what you think.
Okay, so I want a clarification.
I gave you a simple, straight answer.
What does it mean?
No, you tell me.
I don't know. You're asking me a question. You asked
You don't think they are a terror group?
No, I want your definition of what is a terror group?
An act that commits acts of terror, a group that commits terrorist acts, as they did on October the 7th.
So one that commits terror attack. All right, fine. So define terror.
Do you want to answer the question or not?
I do, but I just want clarification.
No. We all know what terrorism is.
Please, no. We're going to go somewhere with this. We're going to go somewhere with this, right?
Well, are you going to answer the question?
Yes. Once I get your definition, what's a terror attack?
The definition is as is laid down in international law.
Which
it's
is
committing an act of terror.
Which is
terrorism.
Are you asking questions you don't know the definition of?
Well, why don't you tell me what you think it is?
I don't know. You're asking the question.
You've no idea what terrorism is.
No, I want you to answer your question.
I would say massacring 1,200 people on October the 7th in the way Hamas did is an act of terror. Do you agree?
So killing civilians is an act of terror?
No, that's not what I said.
So then killing civilians is not an act of terror?
On that scale is terrorism.
So killing civilians is not an act of terror?
You're not going to answer. Let me bring
No, I want your definition.
No.
I want you to be consistent.
We have a third guest.
No, but I want to say I want to say something.
All right.
United States recognized PLO as a terrorist and it negotiates with PLO. This is one thing. The second, October 7 happened and many things happened after. Are we here just stuck there as a snapshot and to discuss it, or we want to discuss what after and what can be done
in a positive way?
That's the most important.
I think they're all important issues, but right now, because of what happened in the fallout from last night's show, I specifically want to discuss the definition of terrorism, Hamas, and whether a British
But Hamas is not the Palestinian people.
Hang on.
We have an exact definition.
I'm going to bring in
our third definition.
I'm going to bring in Douglas Murray. You're just sitting patiently here. Douglas, first of all, what was your reaction to this interview with an NHS doctor last night on this show?
Well, let me first of all say that it's necessary to clear quite a lot of things up because we've heard quite a lot of hogwash in the last few minutes. Firstly, your guest last night is a member of an extremist organisation, Hizb ut-Tahrir, which is banned in many countries, including in European countries. And it's also banned in many Muslim countries. It's banned in Pakistan, it's banned in Egypt, and that's because these Muslim governments recognise that it is an extremist group that has a revolutionary ideology that wants to replace government in Muslim countries as well as in... do you know... Germany.
One European country is banned in Douglas Murray. I'm not going to let you lie to the audience like you usually do. You're going to justify everything you say on this show, Douglas Murray. Right? So please, give me one country.
Germany.
It's not banned in Germany.
I just said
it's not banned in Germany.
You're not listening. You're not listening. You're not listening.
To the audience. Google it for yourself. Hizb ut-Tahrir in Germany, are they banned as an organisation?
Is this Mr. Al-Andalusi? Can I just check? Because I can't see you.
It is, yeah.
Is that him?
Yeah.
OK. This is a guy, he's of no significance, but he's a guy who I have seen in studios for years, spouting extreme Islamist rhetoric, Many years ago, he couldn't condemn the killing of the journalists at Charlie Hebdo. Last year, he wouldn't condemn the attempted murder of Salman Rushdie. Now he can't do this. He fails every single test. But let me get on to the question. Look, I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to engage in a bun fight with this Islamist. Let me answer the question that Piers put to me before you try to interrupt again.
Only if you don't lie.
Let him answer, please.
I
First of all,
let him answer, please.
But all right.
First of all, I'm not going to keep being talked over by this Islamist blowhard. Let me speak. First of all, your first guest treated us to the first bit of mouthwash this evening by claiming that the word jihad can mean absolutely anything. Nonsense. When a big bearded member of Hizb ut-Tahrir calls for jihad on the streets of London, then they are not calling for an interpersonal struggle with the nature of the divine. They are calling for violence. And anyone who can't recognise that should be questioned about their own motives. Secondly, we've just been treated to a monologue about casualty figures in Gaza. Where do these figures come from? I'll tell you where they come from. They come from Hamas. It's quite remarkable to me that 2 months after the October the 7th massacre, the Israelis still don't know the precise number of people murdered on October the 7th. There's a reason for that, because it takes time to work out massacres of that scale. One of the striking, you know, I just don't know if either of your guests are going to allow me a word in.
Because you are lying, and even the numbers from Israel, from the IDF, which are not accredited.
No. You will,
These are your
it's
numbers.
really interesting hearing somebody who presents themselves as a moderate being a spokesperson for Hamas. So let me continue. They are Hamas figures. They are all provided by the ministries of Hamas, which is a prescribed terrorist organization. If you want to reel off Hamas figures, then be my guest, but you are not able to mislead the viewers of Piers' show by quoting Hamas figures at his viewers as if they are holy
I am not
writ.
quoting.
Third,
it's the Euromed.
We've been treated to this
the
nonsense.
United Nations.
We've been treated
it's the international community organizations.
Where do you think they get the figures from? Where do you think they get the figures from? Thirdly, I will continue to speak if it kills you. Thirdly, World War II. It is nonsense that what has been happening in Gaza has, as you said in this endless list of fallacies, that there has been more bombing in Gaza, more deaths and destruction in Gaza than during World War II. Do you know anything about World War II?
Almost,
do you know anything about World War II?
In Dresden alone,
Germany.
Do you know anything about World War II,
Dresden alone,
Douglas?
take one German city. The destruction was on a scale totally dissimilar to what's been happening in Gaza.
I'm taking London.
Very, very
to what you
interested.
said, the
I'm
number
very
of the
interested, and I
Palestinians
will,
killed in
once
Gaza,
again, I will finish this point, even if both of these blowhards
let me ask Douglas one question.
No, it's
I
important
will
because he
finish the
mentioned it
point
in one
I
of his
wanted to
Okay,
make.
I'm going to come back to you both. Let me ask Douglas one question. Douglas, specifically about the doctor.
It is very important for your viewers to hear the following definition. The definition of terrorism is the deliberate targeting of innocent civilians. That is what Hamas specializes in. That is what Hamas did
and that's
on
what
October
is happening
the 7th.
in Gaza
now,
also.
Is what Israel is doing terrorism? No, for the following reason. And again, you can lie about this if you want, but do not expect not to be challenged about it. What the IDF is doing is the same manner of war as the British Army, the American Army, and all other armies in the civilized world. They target terrorists like Hamas, and there are civilian casualties. Yes, there are. But it is not the aim of the IDF any more than it is of the British or American armies to target civilians. And anyone who pretends otherwise is lying to the public watching.
All right, Douglas, final question before I go back to the two in the studio here. And it's specifically about the doctor that was on last night, whether he should be allowed to continue practicing as a GP when he identifies Hamas as a resistance group, wouldn't say that it committed an act of terror, said he didn't even believe that there had been a massacre, and was also quite blatantly homophobic, amongst other things. Well, he didn't actually. Douglas...
But not Douglas.
Let
me ask Douglas.
No, please.
Let me ask Douglas.
Douglas, the medical association.
I'm asking
the
Douglas.
medical association.
I will come both to.
The medical association is the one who is assigned to.
Fine. I'm asking Douglas what his view is.
Douglas.
What's your
He's
view?
not a medical doctor.
I'm asking Douglas's
professional.
opinion. Douglas.
Well, you don't seem to be much of an impartial observer of this, I have to say myself. I thought slightly highly of you before you started ranting as much as Mr. Al-Andalusi this evening. I'll tell you what I thought of it, Piers. I think our country has had enough of people like your guest last night. It's not just that he's in the NHS. Why is he in Britain? Why do we allow people in Britain to try to overthrow the state, who praise terrorism, members of extremist organizations? What has Britain got from this guy exactly? What benefit have we got from him? I mean, I wouldn't want to be an NHS patient going to him. I don't know if any Jews would particularly want to in Britain. I don't know if very many innocent people would want to go to this doctor. But my question is not just should he be able to practice. I want to know why our country of Britain has been such a soft touch for decades that we have Hamas leaders, terrorist spokespeople, Islamist sympathisers like your guest, Mr. Al-Andalusi, and now NHS doctors who are members of groups like Hizb ut-Tahrir that stand on the streets of London, call for jihad, call for Muslim armies to arise. I don't think our country benefits anything from these people. I think people like that should leave. We have no need of them.
Douglas Murray, thank you very much indeed for joining me. I appreciate it.